Have you ever believed that your manifestation would cost you something? Kind of like you had to sacrifice something. So, for example, if you have a thriving business, you would have to sacrifice your marriage or relationships. Kind of like if you are successful in business, then you can't be successful in love or relationships. Men will be jealous. Or you thought that to be a mother and have a family, you have to sacrifice your career. So when peace is not next to your manifestation, you're negotiating from a place of lack. Okay? So your dream life cannot manifest if you have the following blocks. Okay? The first block is to believe that you can't have it all, and that people who have it all are just really lucky or something along those lines. Okay? If it's in your heart, if it's a desire that you have, you best believe that you can have it. Why? Because it exists in the quantum field. Okay? It's there for you to have it if the desire is placed in your heart. There's no way in the planet that a desire would be in your heart if you couldn't have it. Now, the second is your attachment to form. Okay? Kind of like you are fixated on the way that it has to come. So, for example, if you believe that your purpose and monetary satisfaction has to come from your current career. If you believe that the only way for you to feel you have a purpose and you're helping the planet is through your career, and there's nothing more. So there's attachment to form that causes you to be rigid about it. So I'm going to talk about my example, which is I spent a decade building my successful corporate career, right? Getting to, multiple six-figure type thing. I spent years trying to manifest that, right? That was a manifestation from the ego. We're not going to go into that today. Now, if I had thought, in fact, I used to think that early on in my, when I was in my early 30s, I used to think that, how am I going to have, a family without going crazy with this, corporate career that is super demanding and super hectic, right? So I was trying to how do I make these two work? Well, guess what? That corporate career is not the only way that I can feel like I have a purpose or the only way that I can, get money. All right? So had I stayed rigid about it, I would have had to sacrifice something. But guess what? I said, in this day and age, there's so many ways to monetize your skills online. That's the reason why online business exists, right? So that you can have the freedom of time and space, right? Like where you want to work, at what time you want to work, having your own business, right? Online particularly. So, the rigidity and attachment to form is exactly what will block you, right? So, what if you spent all these years in university and, you're So say you went to school to be a doctor or a lawyer and you spent all these years, in school. You're like, what, now I'm going to throw my career away? Well, have you ever seen these doctors that are in YouTube making a killing, right? Or, like there's this, Natalie Crawford, for example. She built an IVF clinic, right? So she went on to be an entrepreneur, right? So now she has the liberty to work whenever she decides, because she has, staff that work with her, right? So she decides. So it's about the non-attachment to form, okay? Because when you attach to form, kind of like, oh, my prosperity or my purpose only has to come from this thing, whether it be a career, whether it be anything, or even like the ones who don't want to work that thing that prosperity can only come from a husband or whatever, right? So remember that the how is never your job, and it is resistance, okay? So understanding that your desire will be fulfilled no matter how, okay? You just have to decide that you have to find something else, So for example, when I was 34, I'm 42 now, I started to think I really need to start, thinking what business I'm gonna come up, right? Before I went on YouTube and all that stuff, I was in Amazon FBA. So I thought I really have to start thinking what am I gonna do? Because being in the corporate thing, not only is it not sustainable for many reasons, but also it's never going to give me, what it is that I'm really looking for. So, whenever you ask, you shall receive the answer. The answers will be revealed to you as you ask, and you're connected to your intuition, connected to source, right? So there's that. Now the third block is that if your identity is tied to an outcome, you're gonna experience the evil swing of the pendulum, right? Kind of like the women that tie their identity of being an independent woman with their particular job, these are the mothers that, and again, this is an example of many, these are the mothers that suffer this whole identity shattering, right? These are the mothers that experience motherhood as really difficult. Why? Because they think that to be independent, they have to be outside of the house making their own income and doing that thing. So their identity of independence is tied to that. So the minute they don't have it, life is crumbling down. Okay? So, for the woman who thinks that, finding a different type of career, or thinking that she has to do something in particular for her to feel independent, right? You see, You see, wealth, independence, freedom, this is the stuff that you have to generate within first for you to have externally, right? So if you are a stay-at-home mom, or the idea of being a stay-at-home mom makes you not feel independent, we really need to go back to self and take a hard look at the mirror and start to generate that feeling from within, and knowing that you are, okay? That you are, regardless of external circumstances. Because again, if you are manipulated or swung or, controlled by the 3D reality, it's going to be really rough, and you're going to think that you can't have it all. All right? So the other bonus block that we're going to give is your conception of time being linear. Or, kind of like, I have to spend this amount of time for me to get this, right? You see, time is really a measurement of change. So for example, the sun to go around, or the earth to go around the sun, for the change of date to night happen takes 24 hours, right? Or, okay, I don't know if I'm giving the correct example here, but what I'm trying to illustrate is that time is a measurement of change, of a certain trajectory. Okay, so for example, you can fly. Here's a better example. You can fly to, I don't know, if you're in California, you can fly to New York. Whereas if you run to New York, it's going to take you a long time, right? So in the measure that you change inside and that you change your patterns, for example, you can work online and make, I don't know, thousands of dollars in a day, right? You can make your salary in a month. Yeah. So if you think that you have to trade time for time or effort to obtain a manifestation, you're going to encounter a block, or you're going to encounter a problem to having it all. So once you get rid of all these blocks and misconceptions, the notion and the reality that is within you of having it all, having a thriving business and having a thriving motherhood experience while still making your own money too, even though you don't necessarily have to do that at the exact time when you have a newborn and the first 2 to 3 years. You don't have to, right? You don't have to make your own money to feel free, to feel free and to be independent. Wow, I know. That's what a fucking crazy idea. Okay? So, that only speaks to one's ability to receive what life has to give us, right? Because all of a sudden, when you become, for example, a mother, and you decide that you can just have all the time in the world and you don't have to worry about making money for a few years, couple years, right? You could still receive what you need or what you want without having to do anything for it. It can just come to you. I know that's like mind chattering, and I know that's a crazy concept, especially these days, right? Before it used to be totally normal. But in any case, it's a rigidity of the mind that will